What if everything you've built in the UK, your job, your home, even your family life, could be taken away in 2025? New policies, rising costs, and legal traps are quietly forcing millions to consider leaving. And it's not just rumours, it's already happening. Whether you're on a visa, a student, an EU citizen, or just someone trying to make it here, you could be next. In this video, we'll break down the 10 real reasons people may be forced out of the UK, and why this might be your final warning to prepare. Number 10. Political uncertainty and frequent policy changes. In today's UK, one of the biggest concerns for immigrants is not just the laws themselves, it's how quickly and unpredictably they change. Over the past 5 years, immigration rules have shifted multiple times, often with little warning. A visa that was valid last year might no longer meet new criteria today. Policies regarding work permits, student visas, family reunification, and residency rights are being rewritten faster than many people can keep up. This constant instability is making it extremely difficult for migrants to plan their futures in the UK. This uncertainty is especially dangerous for those who are midway through long-term visa paths. Many are spending thousands of pounds on renewals, legal advice, and application fees, only to be told the system has changed again. Employers are also struggling, with many small businesses avoiding hiring foreign workers due to fear of regulatory risks or penalties. The government often justifies these shifts as necessary to protect borders or support British workers. But in reality, they create a sense of permanent insecurity for those trying to build stable lives. It's not uncommon for people to meet all the rules one year, then fall out of compliance the next through no fault of their own. For many migrants, the UK no longer feels like a country they can trust long-term. The constant back and forth on policy makes it impossible to settle, invest in property, or plan for family. It's not just the rules, it's the fear that those rules could change overnight. That fear alone is enough to push people to seek stability elsewhere. Countries like Germany, Canada, and Australia are gaining curiosity simply because their immigration policies are more predictable and transparent. If the UK continues this pattern of sudden changes into 2025, it risks driving away some of its most dedicated, skilled, and contributing residents, not through deportation, but through a growing belief that the system is too unstable to trust with their future. Number 9. Healthcare surcharge increases. Access to the NHS has long been one of the UK's major attractions for foreign workers, students, and families. But in recent years, the cost of that access has become increasingly steep. Non-UK residents are required to pay the Immigration Health Surcharge, IHS, as part of their visa applications. In 2024, the UK government announced a significant hike, raising the surcharge to £1,035 per adult and £76 per child per year. This means a family of 4 could now be paying over £3,500 annually, just for the right to use public healthcare, on top of taxes, rent, and daily living costs. For many migrants, this fee is unsustainable. It's especially hard on international students, low-wage workers, and temporary visa holders who already struggle to cover tuition or meet income requirements. Unlike UK citizens, they must pay this surcharge every year, even if they hardly use the NHS. And unlike private insurance, there are no refunds, not even for those who leave early or receive poor service. In many cases, applicants borrow money or delay essential health needs because the upfront cost is simply too high. The surcharge becomes less about healthcare and more about a financial barrier to staying in the country. This rising cost sends a strong message: you're welcome to work, but not to stay healthy. It creates resentment and discourages migrants from accessing the very services they pay for. Some now avoid medical visits to avoid appearing burdensome, fearing that using NHS services too often might affect future visa renewals. Others are actively choosing to leave the UK for countries with more advanced healthcare systems and fairer immigration fees. If the surcharge continues to rise, many will decide the UK is simply not worth it. For thousands of families and professionals, the decision to leave in 2025 may come down to one simple question: can I afford to stay healthy here? If the answer is no, then the only option left is to pack up and go. Number 8. Lack of long-term settlement options. One of the biggest challenges facing migrants in the UK today is the unclear path to permanent settlement. While many people arrive on work, student, or family visas, very few realize how difficult it is to transition to indefinite leave to remain, ILR, the legal status that offers true long-term security. The requirements for ILR have become increasingly strict. Years of continuous residence, high language standards, strict financial records, and no breaks in visa status. A single visa gap or job change can reset the entire process, leaving people stuck in temporary limbo for years. This affects not just individuals, but entire families. A nurse who has worked for the NHS for 5 years may still not qualify for ILR if they changed employers or had visa renewal delays. A student who completed a degree and got a job may find themselves stuck on Tier 2 work visas, endlessly renewing without ever meeting the stability required for long-term residence. Many workers are being cycled through short-term contracts, making it nearly impossible to build a future. And without ILR or citizenship, people are excluded from key benefits, home ownership schemes, and even certain healthcare services. It's a system that gives people just enough to survive, but not enough to settle. The emotional impact is severe. People who contribute to the economy, pay taxes, and follow the rules feel like they're constantly under review, living life on edge. There's no promise that their next visa renewal will be approved, or that changing jobs won't jeopardize their future. Some have already given up and returned home, while others are preparing to leave as soon as their current visa ends. The UK's failure to offer clear, fair, and accessible routes to long-term settlement is quietly pushing people out. By 2025, this could result in a mass departure of skilled, educated, and hard-working residents, not because they don't want to stay, but because they were never given a real chance to belong. Number 7. Rise of nationalist sentiments. Over the past few years, the UK has seen a noticeable surge in nationalist attitudes, particularly in the political and media landscape. While patriotism in itself isn't harmful, the growing wave of anti-immigration rhetoric is creating a climate where foreign residents feel increasingly unwelcome. Terms like taking back control and British jobs for British workers have shifted from campaign slogans to daily conversation, emboldening fringe voices and fostering a hostile public atmosphere. According to the UK Home Office, hate crimes related to race and nationality rose by 12% in 2024, a troubling sign of growing resentment toward migrant communities. For many immigrants, this shift is not just theoretical, it's deeply personal. Reports of verbal abuse, discrimination in housing and employment, and even physical attacks are becoming more common. Communities that once felt safe now report feeling watched, judged, or isolated. And it's not just new arrivals. Even those who have lived in the UK for decades say the tone has changed. A Polish woman living in the UK for 17 years shared that her children are now being bullied at school for not being British enough. These experiences are leading many to ask, is this still my home? This rising social pressure is causing many to quietly consider leaving, not because they're being deported, but because they no longer feel they belong. Families are relocating to countries where diversity is seen as a strength, not a threat. Skilled workers are turning away from UK job offers, fearing discrimination or hostility. Even those who've built successful lives here are feeling that the cost of staying, emotionally, socially, and mentally, is becoming too high. If this trend continues through 2025, the UK could see a significant voluntary outflow, driven not by laws or visa issues, but by a growing sense that being foreign in Britain means never fully being accepted, and that for many is reason enough to start again elsewhere. Number 6. Brexit-driven deportations. The aftermath of Brexit has created a wave of legal uncertainty for thousands of EU citizens who once had the right to live and work freely in the UK. Although the EU settlement scheme was introduced to secure their rights post-Brexit, not everyone has successfully navigated the system. As of 2025, more than 200,000 applications remain unresolved or have been wrongly rejected, putting lives on hold and sparking real fears of forced deportation. Even those who applied in time are discovering that missing documents, system errors, or miscommunications can now lead to sudden notices to leave the country. Many of these individuals have lived in the UK for decades. They've built families, bought homes, and contributed to the economy. Yet, due to Brexit-related bureaucracy, some are now being treated like unauthorized migrants, In one case reported by legal watchdogs, a French woman who worked in the NHS during the pandemic was given 28 days to leave after her application was lost in the system. Stories like hers are becoming increasingly common, and the fear of being deported despite legal residence is growing. Without clear communication or proper legal support, many are left feeling abandoned and powerless. This legal chaos is quietly fueling a trend: voluntary departures among EU nationals. Many no longer feel safe or secure in a country they once called home. Some are moving back to Europe, others are choosing new destinations with clear immigration protections. The emotional toll of being treated as a legal outsider overnight is something policies rarely address, but it's very real. The UK's international image as a stable, welcoming destination is already being affected. If this administrative confusion continues in 2025, it could lead to tens of thousands more EU citizens leaving. Not because they broke the law, but because the system failed to protect them. And with legal deadlines tightening, that exit may not be a choice, but a forced reality. Number 5. Stricter family reunification laws. For many immigrants, the UK isn't just a place to work or study. It's where they hope to build a life with their family. But new regulations around family reunification are making that dream harder to achieve. In 2025, the UK government increased the minimum income requirement to sponsor a spouse or dependent family member to £38,700 per year. This is far above the national average income and puts family sponsorship out of reach for a large number of workers, especially those in healthcare, retail, and social services, where wages are modest, but the need is great. The impact is immediate and deeply personal. According to the Migration Observatory, more than 50% of current UK residents wouldn't qualify to bring a spouse or child under the new income rules. These thresholds apply regardless of how long you've lived in the UK, whether you own a home, or even if your partner already speaks English. For many, it's a heartbreaking situation: either leave the UK to be with family, or live separated indefinitely. These rules are especially tough on women and minority workers, who are statistically more likely to earn below the required threshold. It's creating a silent crisis of family separation, with thousands caught in legal limbo. What's more, the emotional strain is pushing many to make difficult decisions. Couples are putting off marriage. Parents are being forced to raise children in different countries. Some are even giving up permanent residency plans because the personal cost is simply too high. The message seems clear: if you can't meet the financial bar, your family is not welcome. This shift in policy is driving a new wave of voluntary departures, not because people don't love their life in the UK, but because they love their families more. If these rules stay in place through 2025, thousands could be forced to leave, not for jobs or education, but simply for the chance to live with the people they love. Number 4. Deportation of foreign students after studies. Foreign students have long seen the UK as a top destination for world-class education and better job opportunities. But now, those dreams are being disrupted by policy changes that limit what happens after graduation. Until recently, graduates had up to 2 years to remain in the UK and find work through the graduate visa scheme. However, in 2025, proposed restrictions would shorten that time and limit eligibility to students from select high-performing universities only. This means thousands of international graduates from other institutions may be forced to leave, regardless of their academic performance or employment prospects. The rationale behind the policy is to control numbers and prevent what the government calls misuse of student routes. But critics, including top UK universities, argue that this approach is both unfair and short-sighted. According to a 2024 study by the Migration Observatory, over 80% of foreign graduates contribute positively to the economy within a year of finishing their studies. Yet, under the new rules, a student with a job offer outside the government's preferred sectors, or from a less elite institution, might still face deportation within 90 days of graduation. These restrictions ignore the real-world value these students bring, both culturally and economically. For many students, the emotional and financial burden is crushing. Imagine spending £30,000 of £50,000 on tuition and living expenses, only to be told you must leave before you can even start your career. Some are abandoning long-term goals. Others are turning to countries like Canada or Australia, where post-study pathways are clearer and more welcoming. The UK risks losing its reputation as a global education hub if these trends continue. If you're an international student planning to study in the UK or already here, be aware, by 2025, your ability to stay and build a life after graduation may be severely limited, not by your choices, but by government policy. Number 3. Hostile environment policy. The UK's hostile environment policy, originally introduced to tackle illegal immigration, has evolved into something far more complex and controversial. While its stated aim is to discourage unlawful residents, it has increasingly affected even those who are legally in the country. Under this policy, landlords, employers, doctors, and even schools are required to check the immigration status of individuals before offering services. This has created an atmosphere of fear, suspicion, and bureaucratic hurdles for thousands of law-abiding migrants. Even minor errors in paperwork or visa renewals can result in loss of access to basic needs like housing, employment, or healthcare. According to a report by Amnesty International, many legal residents have been wrongly denied services, detained, or even threatened with deportation. One high-profile case involved a grandmother who had lived in the UK for over 40 years, being detained due to a clerical error. These stories are becoming more frequent. The fear is no longer just about being asked for documents, it's about being treated like a criminal for simply existing. Many immigrants now avoid seeking medical help, reporting crimes, or even renting new accommodation because of the risk of being reported to immigration authorities. This environment is making people feel unwelcome, unsafe, and constantly on edge. For many, this policy acts as a daily reminder that their status in the UK is fragile, no matter how long they've lived, worked, or contributed to the country. It sends a message: you're not one of us. People who once called the UK home are now considering leaving voluntarily, simply to escape the stress and stigma. The emotional toll, combined with rising costs and legal uncertainty, is becoming too much. If the hostile environment continues unchecked into 2025, it's likely to push thousands more out, not because of legal violations, but because of a system that makes them feel like they don't belong. Number 2. Rising cost of living. The cost of living in the UK has reached historic highs, and it's putting millions of residents under immense pressure. From rent and food to transportation and energy bills, prices have skyrocketed in just a few short years. According to the Office for National Statistics, inflation has pushed basic household expenses up by over 25% since in 2024 alone. Average rent in major cities like London, Manchester, and Bristol increased by more than 20%, making them nearly unaffordable for lower and even middle-income earners. Foreign workers, students, and families are struggling to survive on wages that haven't kept pace with inflation, and many are choosing to leave the UK altogether for countries with lower costs and better quality of life. These economic pressures are affecting essential goods too. Grocery prices have surged across the board, with staples like bread, milk, and eggs rising by over 15% year on year. Energy bills have also hit hard. Some households are now paying over £3,000 per year just to keep the lights on and the heat running. The government support programs have offered only temporary relief, leaving immigrant families, especially those on temporary visas or student budgets, dangerously exposed. Many are now facing a stark choice: stay in a country they can no longer afford, or relocate to a more financially sustainable environment. This choice isn't about comfort, it's about survival. The rising cost of living has become a silent force pushing people out of the UK. It's not just about numbers, it's about real people having to decide between paying rent or sending money home, between feeding their children or renewing a visa. The UK may still offer opportunity, but for many, that opportunity is being priced out of reach. If this trend continues into 2025, millions more could be forced to leave, not because they want to, but because they simply can't afford to stay. Number 1. Changes to visa and immigration rules. The UK's immigration landscape is shifting rapidly, and for many residents, the ground beneath them is starting to feel unstable. With the introduction of the points-based immigration system, the government now prioritizes those with specific job roles, salary thresholds, and English language skills. While it aims to bring in highly skilled workers, it's also making it much harder for others to remain. One major change is the elimination of automatic visa extensions. Many workers who were previously eligible for renewal now face visa rejections due to shifting job criteria or new salary bands. For example, roles once considered essential, like care workers or hospitality staff, are being deprioritized, leaving thousands in legal limbo. According to data from the UK Home Office, over 100,000 visa applications were denied or delayed in the past year alone. And the impact isn't limited to new applicants. Even long-term residents who have been in the UK for years are facing sudden removals if their jobs no longer meet the revised standards. This isn't just policy, it's a real threat to livelihoods and families. Imagine working in the UK for over a decade, building a life only to be told your profession no longer qualifies you to stay. There are already reports of people being given just 28 days to leave after visa refusals, regardless of their ties to the country. The government argues that the new system improves economic efficiency, but critics point out that it's forcing out people who have been vital to the UK economy, especially during the pandemic. It's becoming increasingly clear, even legal, employed, tax-paying migrants are at risk. So, if you're living in the UK on a visa or have loved ones who are, it's essential to understand these rule changes. They could mean the difference between staying or being forced to leave in 20. The idea that millions could be forced to leave the UK by 2025 may sound alarming, but it's not fiction. It's the result of a growing web of policy changes, economic pressures, legal complications, and shifting public attitudes. From stricter immigration rules and rising living costs to limited healthcare access and shrinking settlement pathways, every piece of the puzzle is pushing residents closer to the edge. For many, the decision to leave isn't based on one single issue. It's the accumulation of constant uncertainty, relentless fees, and the feeling of no longer being wanted. This isn't just about immigration. It's about people, real lives, real families, people who've studied here, worked here, paid taxes, and contributed, now feeling they may have no choice but to leave. The UK stands at a crossroads. Will it remain a place of opportunity, or become a revolving door that closes on the very people it once welcomed? If you're living in the UK now, or planning to, understanding these reasons could be the most important step you take before 2025. Don't miss our previous video. It connects deeply with this topic and might give you even more clarity. We put a lot of heart and effort into making these videos for you, so please, support us by subscribing. It's just one click, but it means everything to us.